Europe's economy is very fragile. There's a large threat of disinflation, if not outright deflation. Inflation in Germany is only 0.7%, and that presents a risk to the whole Eurozone and the wider European economy. Trade is relatively flat, and it's at the moment on a knife edge of whether or not the Eurozone can pull out of what might be a second recessionary period. So Mario Draghi actually has a challenge that he needs to address. He's been extremely effective since the time when he decided to do whatever it takes to rescue the Eurozone. Markets have listened to what he says, so he has a huge responsibility on his shoulders in terms of deciding whether or not to move ahead with further quantitative easing. However, at the moment, a full-scale quantitative easing is a political rather than an economic decision. There's still some nervousness amongst the Germans about whether or not a full quantitative easing would be the right way to go. There's still a preference towards increasing competitiveness in some of the peripheral nations, addressing some of the internal imbalances. So a full quantitative easing package at the moment may not substitute for some of the big structural reforms that need to happen. India's economy has gone through a major upheaval. If we go back to 2005, we saw some of the big high-tech sectors in software and in medicines developing very, very fast and becoming very fast and very competitive with some of actually the developed world economies. So India's trade is structured in a way that's very different to, say, some of the other emerging economies like China or Brazil. There's a far higher technology and innovation component in India's manufacturing base. Now what that means is that India is actually very well placed. Things like a young population, a young demographic, high levels of innovation and very fast growing exports of very high-end products like medicines and pharmaceuticals and like cars is going to help the Indian economy. It's still too early to tell whether or not this is going to have an effect on closing the deficit, but things are definitely looking up for India, and definitely the financial risk for India, we rank against, say, China at half the level. So we're actually saying India is actually, in financial terms, a relatively low-risk economy.